Welcome to episode 15 of Secret City Geek Lab, your resource in everything geek. Today we're going to talk movies, TV, comic books, video games, and anything geek. And I'm your host, Alan Ng, and you'll hear from me and members of the improv comedy group Secret City Comic Society. Today's show is brought to you by Secret City Comic Society, the best in all ages improv comedy in downtown Fullerton. Visit Secret City Comedy and the Geek Lab at secretcitycomedy.com or at Facebook at facebook.com/secretcity or visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/secretcitycomedy. Coming up this week, I had a chance to go to Disneyland's Monstrous All-Nighter. We had an interview with comic book writer Gabe Smith and a few more. But let's first talk about the Monstrous All-Nighter. Back in May, it was announced at Epcot that Disneyland, Disney's California Adventure, and the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World would be open for 24 hours, from 6 a.m. to 6 in the morning. That event occurred the Friday just before Memorial Day. This event is kind of a follow-up to last year's One More Disney Day, where the Disneyland parks were open all of the leap year day, February 29th. But that event proved to be problematic. Well, it was just a lot of overcrowding, and the way they kind of fixed the overcrowding this time around was they did not allow cast members to just bring friends in. If they wanted to bring friends in, they had to use one of their passes. So this year, I decided to go to the Monstrous All-Nighter. Now, I have a job, and we have the improv comedy show at night, so I wasn't able to go the entire day. But I went at the time that it counted most, and that was at night. I had a chance to be there from about 10 to 2 o'clock, and I decided, let's do a little report as much as I can. So I recorded a few things here and there. So the first hurdle that you have in getting to one of these largely popular events at Disneyland is you have to actually get to Disneyland. And I wasn't sure what I was going to face when I would head down there. A lot of the reports that I got from the One More Disney Day was that it was just crowded, especially at the midnight hour. The streets of Anaheim were crowded. The parking was being pushed everywhere. And so here is my thoughts as I was getting in my car. Okay, it's May 24th. I'm on my way to the Monstrous event at Disneyland Resort. I just left my house at 10:25 in the evening, so I'm kind of heading out to the back end of the Monstrous event at Disneyland. Step number 1, get to Disneyland. Step 2, try to find parking. That'll be my next report. Where in the world am I going to park? So I got in my car and I headed down to Disneyland and checked the traffic maps. Everything was looking pretty good at that point, up until the point that I got off the freeway. All right, I just got off the 5 freeway on Catella. I'm heading down and just trying to find out where to park. Looks like the sign up ahead says Disney parking straight ahead, so I don't know where that's taking me. It's definitely taking me to Harbor Boulevard. They may have me park at the Toy Story lot, and I think that's where they're sending me, Toy Story lot. Now, if you've ever been to Disneyland, you know that there are 2 main parking lots there. The big parking structure, one of the largest in the world, and then there's the Toy Story lot, which used to be the old strawberry field from long ago. If you ever go to Disneyland and you have maybe a small amount of kids, you don't have a lot of, you have a stroller you can fold up, or if you want to get to the park quickly, the best bet is to go to the Toy Story lot. And that lot is found on Harbor and Catella, right along the way of Convention Way. This is a great parking lot. There's always parking there most of the time. The furthest parking spot away from the bus area is still a lot closer than what you're going to be walking when you go to the parking structure over on the side of Ball. There's a bus system there. Because there's not a lot of people and because there's a lot of buses running, getting on the buses are much faster than you would had you been going on the trams, which can take a really long time, and especially if you have a stroller. So I would definitely suggest parking at the Toy Story parking lot when you have a chance. They're definitely directing me to the Toy Story lot. There are a lot of cars here, but not as many as I would imagine. I would say it's moderate, not heavy. Yeah, so the traffic patterns were pretty good at this point. It's 10:51 right now, and I'm turning left into the Toy Story lot. Situation's not that bad. I thought it'd be worse. I didn't want to park at the Garden Walk because they're going to make you walk. Toy Story is probably one of the better lots to park at if you don't mind taking a bus to the resort as opposed to the tram. So it's a little more difficult if you have strollers or something like that. But it's just me, so I'm going to take the bus. Then once I parked my car, I quickly got down to the bus shuttle area. It's 10:53, and I'm heading over to the shuttle buses right now. Lines again, not too bad at this time at night. So if you're going to do this next time, nighttime's not a bad time. Got on the bus. It did take a little while. I think there's about 4 rounds of buses that went by before I actually got onto one. And it was very quiet. You can imagine it was about 10:30 at night at that time, and people were, even though they were arriving, they were a little tired. I mean, definitely I was tired and feeling kind of fatigued. You get to the bus, they drop you off. 11:15, I just got off the bus and heading over to the security area, and I think I'm going to head to Disneyland first. Best thing I do is say is it's crowded in there. There's a lot of people, and for the most part, they want to be there just to be there. Lines are very long, not incredibly long, but most e-ticket attractions are going about an hour to 2 hours long. Space Mountain was 2 hours long, Star Tours was an hour long, Splash Mountain was about an hour long. Long lines for Haunted Mansion and Pirates. Very crowded there. And the experiences there are crowded too. Couldn't get into the Monsters Inc. dance area at Toontown. A lot of people over at the swing dancing. It's just a madhouse. Alright, let's see how well California Adventure is. So far the turnstiles are pretty small, so I'm very hopeful here. Alright, so this is KTST-FM. You're listening to Secret City Geek Lab. I'm Alan Ng, and we're talking more about the Monstrous night at Disneyland. Got into Disneyland, got my program, basically looking over what's going on. There were a few events that were occurring that night, but I will say once I got into the park, it was incredibly crowded. Main Street was just loaded with people, and to my surprise, there was a parade about to happen. They were having the Mickey Sound Sensation Parade going down at about 1 o'clock that night, and people were really lining up for that. As I looked at the programs, they did have various things going on. The Dapper Dans were singing out on Main Street. There was a pajama party over at Mickey's Toontown. Headed over there, and that party was so popular that there was a huge crowd in front of the Toontown gates. They were only letting people flow in very slowly. I also think maybe there was a fireworks show or something like that, and it just took a while to finally get people into that park, so I was not actually able to get to the pajama party at that time. One of the things that people were excited about, and that was the return of swing dancing. Before the Princess Fantasy Fair was going on, there was swing dancing occurring at the Carnation Cafe, which is where the Fantasy Fair is right now. They did promise to bring it back, and the Monstrous All-Nighter was that first chance to bring swing dancing back to Disneyland. And here's a little sample of the music that was going on. Yeah, it was very popular. A lot of people hanging out there, wanting to dance with their partners, and a lot of crowds hanging around there. Then one of the other features that was going on was the food. New food, or there was food just for this event at various venues. For example, if you went over to any of the candy stores, they had Mike and Sully candied apples. Candied apples that looked just like Mike and Sully. Personally, I went off and I was trying to find some kind of a dessert, and I went over to the Hungry Bear over by Splash Mountain, and there it was, funnel cake. Disneyland has never really had funnel cake. If you go to Disney World, you can get funnel cake however you want. So I had to take advantage of this opportunity. So bought myself some funnel cake, had a little bit of strawberries on top, had myself a real good time. We'll have pictures of those posted up at the Secret City Geek Lab at secretcitycomedy.com/geeklab. Another thing was, notice the event started at like 6 in the morning. You're there at 6:30 in the morning. What do you want? You want breakfast. And pretty much every location had breakfast burritos. Didn't get to try it, but I'm sure they were filled with eggs and bacon and what have you. So now that I'm well fed, decided, let's see if we can go on some rides. Basically went to every single e-ticket ride at Disneyland, and the average hourly wait was about 2 hours. Splash Mountain was 2 hours, Star Tours was 2 hours, Space Mountain was 2 hours, Matterhorn was very long. So you I didn't have a chance to go on any of the rides at Disneyland. But I will say this, like I said, everywhere you went, there's just nothing but people. At midnight, at 1 o'clock, people, floor to floor, wall to wall, it was hard to get around. There were a couple of special opportunities that you had. Over at Tomorrowland, in front of Innoventions, they had Disney characters dressed up as Star Wars characters, and you had your chance to have a photo op with them. So Mickey Mouse was dressed up as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Minnie Mouse was Princess Leia, Goofy was Darth Vader, and Donald Duck was a stormtrooper. When I happened to go by, it was Donald and Goofy, and they were kind of messing around. Goofy was Darth Vader, Donald Duck was a stormtrooper, and Donald Duck was kind of goofing off, and Goofy was goofing off as well. Crowd was having a ball, and like I said, you just don't get opportunities like this to take pictures often. And so these limited magic events or limited time magic events that occur at Disneyland, great opportunities to try something new or try something that they haven't done in a long time. You're listening to Allening on KTST-FM, and this is the Secret City Geek Lab. We're right in the middle of my trip report for the Monstrous All-Nighter event at Disneyland. Well, after a while, I was getting a little tired. I was definitely getting tired of the crowd, so I decided to head on over to California Adventure. So I looked at California Adventure and noticed that there wasn't a lot of people over there. And so maybe it was a chance for me to kind of take a look at what's going on over there. One thing I knew ahead of time was that grad nights nowadays are occurring at Disney's California Adventure. High school graduates have a chance to basically have the run of Cars Land and Paradise Pier. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. You walk in, this was about, I'd say 1 o'clock when I got to California Adventure. The first thing you know is that the only place that's open is the main entrance area of California Adventure, the Soarin' over California area, and the Disney Hollywood back lot. Everything else was closed off. You couldn't get very far in California Adventure. So as I got in, not too bad in terms of crowd-wise. I headed over to the Mad Tea Party, and there was a lot of rock and roll going on. And let's take a little sample of that rock and roll. One thing I'll say about California Adventure is this is where you want to go if you just want to kind of dance, have some fun, and drink. There's a lot of drinking going on. They're playing a lot of hairband music, and a lot of people are having a lot of fun. But again, this is mostly the older crowd. The animation studio was open. You could go in there and get some animation lessons. But pretty much all the action was occurring at the Mad Tea Party. And both stages over at the Mad Tea Party were being used. That was the band area, and then there's the Tweedledee and Tweedledee.
Stage, spade, diamond, club, and heart. Shuffle them all together, and you've got the hottest deck in town.
This is a journey into sound.
Now, a couple of other things going on at California Adventure, worth mentioning. Monsters, Inc. was being shown at the Muppet Theater. And also, if you had showed up at the Monsters event a little bit earlier, you could have gotten a wristband and actually gotten to see the upcoming Monsters University, which is pretty much what this event was being done for. Had a chance to see that. I didn't want to go see in Monsters, Inc. at that time because I felt like if I was going to go in and watch the movie, I was going to fall asleep and never wake up. Also, heading back into the main circle area at California Adventure, we got to see the new Monsters University Pixar Play Parade float. And that featured Mike and Sully and various characters from Monsters University. It was a really cool float. It's much bigger than the other floats. And I also mentioned that e-ticket rides were averaging about 2 hours each. I did have a chance to go on Soarin' over California, partly because it was only a 10-minute wait. And that's what it was, a 10-minute wait. Really love that. And so my feeling was, I was there just to be there. And I think everybody else was just there to be there. Meaning, they weren't really there to go on rides. to do what you normally would do at Disneyland. You were there to be at Disneyland for 24 hours. Or for what most people did, you were at Disneyland just to be there at midnight and be able to go on some kind of rides and say, hey, I was there till the break of dawn. This year, crowds were much more manageable. Either people stayed away because of the crowds, or maybe they're just making it a little bit harder for masses of people to come in. But it's definitely a fun event worth going to. And I give it a 8 out of 10. You listen to KTSTFM. I'm Alan Ng, and this is the Secret City Geek Lab. Moving on to comic books. Again, I'm playing a couple of interviews I had over at Long Beach Comic Con, and this time I had a chance to speak with Gabe Smith. Gabe Smith is a young professional freelance writer, born and raised in Venice, California. He first started off as an EMT, answering 911 calls, but he chose to leave the medical profession for the much more peaceful life of writing screenplays. After living abroad in places like Costa Rica and Connecticut, he returned to Venice Beach and began writing screenplays and writing comic books. We talked about Human. It's an independent, self-published cyberpunk sci-fi graphic novel saga. Its story takes place hundreds of years into the future on Earth, surrounding a young female bounty hunter named Cezra, who lives in a society where human genetic engineering and biomechanical upgrades are illegal but common. In the opening issue, the difficult battle with biotech dealer named Drollo entangles Cezra with the Department of Human Purity, the branch of the government dedicated to removing biotech criminal elements from society. And as a result, Dr. Carter, a surgeon at a medical hospital, provides treatment to nanotech viruses infected on patients and becomes involved in this battle. Again, Human was written by Gabe Smith, art by Ryan Merrill, and here's my interview with Gabe Smith. I'm at Long Beach Comic Con with Gabe Smith, and he wrote the comic book Human. What can you tell me about it?
Hi, Alan. Well, first thing you should know about Human is that it's a cyberpunk story. It takes place a couple hundred years in the future. People are getting biomechanical upgrades and genetic enhancements installed on their bodies, but it's illegal, so the government's tracking these people down and taking away their upgrades, and so are private mercenary bounty hunters, like the main character of this story, who is named Cezra. She's a young bounty huntress that is doing the same thing. And in the first issue, the three parties, she, the bounty huntress, and the government, and the criminal biotech dealer that they're tracking down, all rendezvous at the same moment in the first issue, and a fight ensues.
Okay, and this is a debut issue, or when is it coming out?
This is the debut issue. We've been picked up for distribution by Diamond, so we've already been appeared in Previews magazine. We just came out in the April issue and on page 334, and you can see us in stores in June. At the end of June, you'll be able to see Human issue number 1 in stores.
Okay, so we can find it. Do you have is there a website for it?
Oh, absolutely. You can find it on humancomics.com.
All right, and what was your inspiration for this story?
Oh, it's a story I had in my mind for a very long time. It's just one of those stories that you're just trying to get out, and then finally when you do, it comes out the way you wanted it. That's all it is.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Alan.
That was Gabe Smith, and he was talking about his new comic book, Human. First issue comes out in late June, and you can purchase it at your local comic book store or at humancomics.com. If you want to get a free preview of Human, you can join his mailing list at that website, humancomics.com. This is KTSTFM. I'm Alan Ng, and you're listening to Secret City Geek Lab. We're moving on to more comic books, and we're going to talk about Cable and the X-Force. Cable and the X-Force issue 9 is on stands right now, and this is our review. This issue guest stars the Uncanny Avengers. Hope goes on the run and determined to help Cable whether he wants her to or not. But the Uncanny Avengers have been keeping tabs on Hope, and they will not let her get tangled up with Cable and his band of fugitives. Dennis Hopeless was formerly writing Cable and X-Force, and now Cable and X-Force is being written by Frank Thierry with art by Salvador LaRocca. Now, Cable and X-Force have gotten themselves in some trouble, as you just heard, and in this issue, the Uncanny Avengers have caught up with Hope. They know that she wants to rejoin Cable, and they fear the consequences of if she not only finds him, but begins to help him. Cable and the X-Force is now being seen as terrorists. They've, as mentioned in the preview, they've caused quite a bit of trouble, all in for the reason of saving the entire universe. Something you need to know is that Cable has these visions, and his goal is to take his team and prevent these visions of destruction and the apocalypse from occurring. Now, although Cable and the X-Force are acting like terrorists, Cable has friends within the Uncanny Avengers, especially Rogue. And she can't believe that Cable is doing what he's doing. But Havoc and Captain America, they need to find them and they need to track them down. They need to stop him from doing what he's been doing. Havoc, Captain America, and Rogue run up to Hope, find her, and they try to convince her that she cannot team up with her father. Captain America just lays it out there. He's doing wrong, and she can't be a part of it, and he's going to stop her no matter what. The problem with this is his way of stopping her is to basically take her into custody and put her in the custody of S.H.I.E.L.D., where she basically becomes a prisoner. And the question here is it right for humans to lock up mutants just because they're perceived as being dangerous, even if they have not committed a crime yet? Rogue, on the other hand, realizes that Hope is living in a foster family. She's going to school. She's acting as a normal girl right now. Why would she give it up and become a fugitive and a superhero and risk her life and risk any hope for a normal childhood she could ever have? But Hope in this case has a couple tricks up her sleeves. She went to a prison, ran into got into contact with some supervillains there and took their powers. And through a course of a series of events, she was able to escape and be once again a fugitive. That's our show for today. You're listening to KTSTFM. My name is Alan Ng and the Secret City Geek Lab. This is episode 15 of Secret City Geek Lab, brought to you by Secret City Comic Society, Fullerton's best in all ages improv comedy. Come back next week for more news and updates in the world of geekdom and nerdity. Visit us online for daily geek news and reviews of comic books, movies, and television. This week, we're going to be at E3 to talk about video games, and we'll have reports next week. So see you to then. Visit secretcitycomedy.com.